Good morning.
Good morning.
The idea for this sermon started weeks before the November election. I knew, depending on the outcome, that I could still make it work. But waking up on November 6th, I considered scrapping the idea and starting over. If things weren't already hard and heavy, they had just gotten so much worse. I had an awkward conversation with a coworker who I wrongly assumed shared political alliances. She assured me that my day-to-day life would not be affected by the outcome of the election, and that I was overreacting by being upset. I felt a lot of things after this interaction, but the one that stood out was wanting to somehow prove to her that my life was worse because of the election. I had to prove her wrong with my suffering. I have a pin on my badge at work that says, "It's okay to not be okay." And I often recommend a book on grief with a similar title. And I stand by this. It is okay to not be okay. Sometimes we need to sit with our pain, our suffering, our grief. This is especially important to me when faced with toxic positivity, things like, "Only good vibes here," and "Failure is not an option," and "Always look on the bright side." I feel like these kind of sayings promote cutting off part of our humanness. There needs to be space to be able to break down, to feel the hard things. For a while, there was a sign in one of the nurses' break rooms at the hospital that said, "If tacos can fall apart and still be amazing, so can I." But the only way to be happy isn't only being happy. So here I was, feeling like I had to be suffering to prove that things aren't okay in the world. Sayings like, "If you aren't outraged, you aren't paying attention," popping into my mind. Even before the election, there were and still are so many awful things happening in our world. How could I feel okay? Feel joy? Well, there was so much suffering that was happening every second of every day. Who was I to be happy? It felt selfish in a way, and I felt guilty if I looked away, like I was ignoring reality. Not being okay almost felt mandatory, like it was how I could show others everything isn't going to be fine. Sojourner Truth said, "If we laugh and sing a little as we fight the good fight of freedom, it makes it all go easier. I will not allow my light to be determined by the darkness around me." And Thich Nhat Hanh said, "This, my dear, is the greatest challenge to being alive, to witness injustice in the world and not allow it to consume our light." And my friend Adrienne posted on social media that she and her wife were going to keep celebrating their queer joy, that they would not let the haters win and take away the beauty in their lives. All of these quotes point to the importance of finding positive things in our lives in the midst of hardship, to keep us going. Joy can be resistance. Being okay can be an act of rebellion. Choosing joy in a world that is constantly telling us we aren't enough is an act of holy defiance. Living in fear, sadness, and outrage can keep us from living full and robust lives. It can also be a way to sustain us during difficulty. Pleasure is a result of joy. In 2019, author Adrienne Marie Brown came out with a book titled Pleasure Activism: The Politics of Feeling Good. It is a transformative book that argues for centering pleasure as a political act. It offers insights on harnessing pleasure to create social change and exploring the idea of a world where joy, freedom, and justice are intertwined. Pleasure activism asserts that we all need and deserve pleasure, and that our social structures must reflect this. In this moment, we must prioritize the pleasure of those most impacted by oppression. A key message in her book is that pleasure is about feeling whole and satisfied, not about indulging in excess. Many of us have grown up with certain beliefs that have trained us to equate pleasure with indecency or needless indulgence. We've been taught to repress our desires for pleasure so much that any sort of allowance is seen as excessive. As a result, when people hear ideas about embracing pleasure, their thoughts often immediately turn to negative perceptions. But that's not what pleasure activism is about. The author and those who she's interviewed like to say, everything in moderation. My dad likes to say that too. So while we extol the virtues of pleasure, try not to think of it in terms of excess or overindulgence, but in bringing us joy. So you might be thinking, Reverend Katie, I get it. I'm not going to let my joy be stolen. But also, maybe it isn't stolen, but it's lost. How do I find it in the midst of all the suffering in the world? Or maybe even in the midst of my own suffering? Our reading this morning, Reverend Sherry tells us that joy can be hard. Start small. Drink your favorite cup of tea. Eat your favorite dark chocolate peanut butter cup. Watch a heartfelt movie. Sing at the top of your lungs to your favorite song. Turn off the news. Find a funny video on the internet and let yourself laugh. Pay attention to the beauty of the snowfall. In fact, a lot of joy can be found in paying attention. You have probably heard someone say, choose joy, like it's something we have control over. And like with many things, I think there is both truth and falsehood in that statement. In our story for all ages this morning, we saw our characters choose joy. Even though their day threw many wrenches into their plans, they were able to find happiness with each other and being together, even when things didn't go their way. I know there have been times in my own life when I've been extra grumpy, annoyed, or just having a crap day. And I've been aware enough to shift gears. Sometimes I think of things I'm grateful for. Sometimes I reach out to a friend who will listen to me complain and then make me smile. But I don't want to fall into the trap of toxic positivity here. Like I said, it's okay to not be okay, just as it is okay to be okay. Sometimes we can't find sparks of joy. Sometimes surviving, not thriving, is a win. Waking up to face another day however we feel is the best we can do sometimes, and that is a win. We are not built to live in stasis, to exist in only one mode of being. There is not a positive vibes only or negative vibes only way of being that can fully capture what it means to be human. On Sunday mornings, we invite each other to share joys, sorrows, and concerns. We can hold all of it. And it takes a village to do so, because there will be some days when some of us are more equipped to hold things than others. So perhaps the place we can look for growth is learning how to live in the both and. Knowing that things will be hard, and it's okay to be in the hard feelings, but not live there forever. And that it's okay to be okay, and to find joy in the world around us, but not to the extreme that it cuts off part of our humanity. As I was working on this sermon, I thought maybe I needed to write one called It's Okay to Be. I offer you this adaptation of the Serenity Prayer. Grant me the peace to accept that sometimes I am not okay, and the courage to find the joy in the things I can. and the wisdom to know how to move between the two. We live in a beautiful, broken-hearted world, and we are beautiful, broken-hearted people. There is a quote I love by Robin Wall Kimmerer, the author of Braiding Sweetgrass. She said, "Even a wounded world is feeding us. Even a wounded world holds us, giving us moments of wonder and joy. I choose joy over despair, not because I have my head in the sand, but because joy is what the earth gives me daily, and I must return that gift." And if you're struggling to find joy today, I offer you this short sermon and the joy of getting out of church on time.